So welcome back to another episode of Vessels Insight video series. We're here today with Sage Growth Capital. We have Denise Dunlap, Kevin Learned, and Molly Otter, and I'll have them give a quick background on themselves as well as their company.
Denise Dunlap, managing partner and co-founder of Sage Growth Capital. I have a various background in IT services, professional fundraising, all kinds of things. I've been an angel investor since 2008, and along with Kevin, we formed another company called Loon Creek Capital, which provides services to angel investors. So I've been on the angel investing side as well as the fund administrator side for many, many years. And then also, I used to run the business incubator for Boise State, so I worked with entrepreneurs. I used to say that my day job was working with the entrepreneurs and my night job was working with the angels. So I've kind of been in this funding world from all perspectives, also being an entrepreneur myself. So
I'm Kevin Learned. I'm an exited entrepreneur with a software company that we created in the 1970s and 80s and scaled nationally. I've been involved in creating capital for entrepreneurs for about the last 25 years, and Sage Growth Capital is our latest rendition of ways to create capital for entrepreneurs.
So I'm Molly Otter, and I am not an entrepreneur necessarily. I'm the investment banking side of the house, so my experience has been in finance on Wall Street, and then we started a company called Lighter Capital in Seattle that does revenue-based financing and really took that nationally as a concept for investing in, at the time, SaaS technology businesses. And when I moved here to Boise, I was looking for something interesting to do and happened to meet up with Kevin and Denise and start Sage as a way to do revenue-based financing for not just SaaS technologies.
Nick, maybe we ought to take a moment and say what revenue-based financing is.
I would love that. If you could absolutely describe what revenue-based financing is, yes.
So it's a type of risk capital. In our case, we provide it to relatively early stage growing businesses, whereby in exchange for our money, the company agrees to give us a percentage of their revenue every month until we have been paid an agreed upon return. For example, we might invest $100,000 in a company in exchange for 5% of their sales until they had paid us back $200,000. Mm-hmm. So it is risk capital. We provide it for an intermediate term, 36 to 60 months, but it is not equity capital, so it does not dilute the owners of the business.
Mm-hmm. So this is absolutely not equity. This is not taking shares of ownership. This is a completely different type of financing vehicle for companies that are looking at raising capital.
Right.
So a lot of times businesses will talk about, well, I'm going to get a loan or something like that, and there's some specific interest rate. There's not necessarily, you don't really know what the interest rate is for revenue-based financing until the very end, because the payments could vary.
And so that's why, to your point, we don't know what the effective interest rate is up front because our payments are based on sales. Those sales are going to fluctuate, our payments are going to fluctuate. So even though we set a payment term, as Kevin said, 36 to 60 months, we really don't know how long that will take to pay off. And so typically, we expect it to take longer than we think it will. At the end, we can certainly calculate an interest rate, but we don't know what that is in the meantime because we're driving towards that pre-negotiated repayment amount, not an interest rate, like a typical loan.
So from what I'm gathering, you really have to have a good recurring revenue source in order to qualify. So I kind of want to touch on right now, what is a good customer for you guys? What makes a good, I guess, how does a business really take advantage of this type of financing? What does that look like? Right.
What makes somebody a good customer is that recurring nature of their revenue stream. So whether that's like a contract with John Deere to supply the parts for tractors, and so they have like a long-term contract and they know how many parts they're supplying over the next year or 3 years or 5 years or however that contract is structured, that works really well. Somebody who is just kind of what we would call elephant hunting. So just hoping to make one big sale into John Deere, they're not going to be a good fit for revenue-based financing, because you may make that one sale, but where are you going to get your next sale from to continue to pay this over that period of time? So that's kind of how we think about it and what we look for in customers. The other thing I'll say is that your balance sheet is really important when you're thinking about revenue-based financing. So having a lot of MCA, merchant cash advance, or other types of high interest loans on your balance sheet that are really eating your cash flow is very hard for revenue-based financing to kind of sit behind, because we're going to have to sit behind that. And if they're eating your cash flow over 3 to 6 months, that can really hurt the business and hurt our ability to get the returns back. We also really like to know that if we're going to make the investment, that you have a growth strategy for that investment. So it isn't just a continuing of the existing working capital, but that it is, if you put this money in, I can get this next contract with somebody else in order to continue to grow my business versus just maintaining the business that I have today.
Okay. So what are examples of how people are using the capital that you guys provide? I mean, is it to buy equipment so that they can help with fulfillment? What does that look like?
We've had a bunch of inventory usages.
Okay.
So building up inventory for going into new customers, or entering a new market, like you already are in one market, but you're adding a second market to it. That's been a big use. New product lines similarly, so financing the moldings that you have to spend on new product lines is something that we've done. We've also just done pure marketing, marketing spends, that type of stuff.
If a
Key
company,
hires too, I think, is one thing that we've seen a lot, is they need to expand their sales force or whatever it is, but we see that often for key hires. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to say, if a company knows their cost of customer acquisition and they understand what it takes to acquire a customer, then we're really interested in providing capital to support that marketing effort, because we know that they spend that capital, it will increase the sales. And from our standpoint and the business's standpoint, the faster the sales grow, the happier we all are.
That's one of the nice things about revenue-based financing, is that the alignment between the entrepreneur and the investor is more towards growth and towards revenue. And that's how we're getting paid back. So that's how we want you to proceed forward. Whereas the alignment can be different when you're an equity investor and you're looking for a specific exit, or you're looking for a certain strategy from that business. We're just purely aligned on your growth of your business. And generally entrepreneurs want to grow their businesses. So that's like a good setup.
Okay.
I want to put something else on the table, please, for the viewers, Nick. And this is capital. This is risk capital, and it's not a substitute for bank financing. By all means, if a company can get their working capital from traditional financing sources, they should do that. This is risk capital for companies that typically are not yet bankable, or at least not bankable to the extent of the capital they need. So we are more equity-like in the risk that we take, or willing to accept, and debt-like in the way we get paid, and once you've paid us off, we go away.